Evening, ladies and gents. Thanks for having me. About 10 years ago, I was just starting off my professional rugby career, and I was sitting in a little room in Twickenham, and I was told that we're going to be talked about by some chap who used to play from Gloucester called Keith-Roach. I thought, well, first of all, how can you come and play from Gloucester if you had a double vowel surname? I didn't think that was possible. I thought you had to have two heads, not two names. And I thought, well, what am I going to learn from some old boy who hasn't played for 20, 30 years? How wrong I was. From that day, I was mesmerised by his knowledge and his experience on the Scrum, but also his passion about the Scrum. And you talk to any of the coaches in the Premiership now, any of the England coaches who've worked with him or have had advice from him, they still see him as the greatest Scrum coach in the world. So I am so lucky that he's also, over the last 7 or 8 years, taken me under his wing, pushed me around coffee shops, restaurants, bars, wine shops, teaching me some of his knowledge. And I say some of it because I've probably taken that much, which has made me that much better. We work together, just to let you know how we work together. So, for example, next Friday I am refereeing a game down in Cardiff. Every big game I prepare for. I do not prepare for properly if I haven't spoken with the man you're about to hear from. He sets me up for the game, he prepares me for the game, and every single game during the Rugby World Cup we met for a few hours and talked through how that game worked. And Phil will explain some of that in a moment. But quite simply, he's a Scrum guru, he's a great coach, but he's also a very, very good friend of mine. So can I ask you to welcome Phil Keith-Roach.
Well, thanks very much. And it's a pleasure to be here and to come back to the London Society. I think I came here a few years ago, probably about when I was still with the England team, but I opted out last year, so sorry about that. But I'm here now, and I'm obviously clearly delighted when the phone rings, because he doesn't have to ring me. When the phone rings and he wants me again to discuss the next match, I take that as okay, things are working well, and we carry on. It's 10 years. But it hasn't been the 10 easiest years in scrummaging. Sometimes, to be quite frank, I feel the Laws Committee, who I know are doing their best, have taken us off on detours, they've changed the nature of the engagement, and they have never got down to the most important issue. And I know that we, as I'll tell you later, caused part of the problem as coaches. We ramped up the big hit. We ramped up overpowering the opposition on contact, and we wanted to be the best in the world at it. And as long as the law book said the ball should be put in on contact, we ramped it up more and more. Now, at last, I don't quite know how, but 2 years ago, they changed something. And it wasn't so much the crouch, bind, set. It's actually about the fact the ball should not be put in until the referee is 100% happy with what he's looking at. Now I'm going to be talking about the two-part scrum later on. But to set this evening off, what I'd like to do, we've got lots of clips of you, we've got clips of one Saturday I sat down and I thought, if we're going to do this properly, I want to find a game where the scrum really works. And then I want to find a few scrums to show the guys so they've got a picture of what a good scrum looks like. So when you go out, wherever you are in the world, whatever league you're refereeing, you've got an idea in your mind of what you expect. Wayne always says to me, we never leave a meeting until he says, I've got a picture of what I'm looking at on Saturday. We'll have looked at the general play of those scrums in previous matches. We'll also look at individuals. If there's a difficult bugger somewhere in there who happens to be ducking and diving or causing a bit of difficulty, we'll look at him in detail as well, so that at least when Wayne walks in the changing room and gives advice to the teams, he can actually give them constructive advice, which is going to avoid penalties, which is going to go some way to getting the scrum back on the road. Before we start, I just want to say that about 3 years ago, there was a time when 0 Premiership coaches were practicing moves from scrums because they did not expect them to end up in usable ball. They were working for penalties and only penalties and to gain ground, and that leads to a line-out, and they were missing a key component of the game. Imagine the pitch, the biggest pitch in rugby union is 100 metres long and 18 metres wide. That is, if you multiply the two together, that's something like 8,000 square metres. Well, if you take, if there's 2 lines of 30 people, it's impossible to break a defence. But when you take a scrum, which only takes up 8 square metres, 8 against 8,000, and you put 18 people in there, 2 packs of forwards and 2 half-packs, plus probably the ref. All that space is not being used. And it became depressing. There were lots of times when we've been talking to friends and they say, what happened there, what happened there, the scrum collapsed again. And now they changed the law and it's made a massive difference. We're getting more scrum ball, we're getting more attractive play, they can still scrum for penalties, they can still do pushover tries. They've got a whole kaleidoscope of what's possible from the scrum. And that's actually because they fell upon a change in the law which has taken years to get to. So to start with, I'd like to show you...
Oh, it's been fantastic. Look.
Just before we start this, I'd like to talk between each clip and tell you what I'm looking for. This is England in the 31st minute of their match on Saturday. They had 2 new players in the front row. On this side, we've got 20-year-old Hill. Inside him, Jamie George. Don't show it just yet. It's a beautiful scrum. The ball is put in. The referee stabilises it after contact. Would you please just look for that? There's a bit of initial movement on contact. He waits. The ball's put in. It's struck. The England coach has asked for the ball to be back to number 8 as quickly as possible. He can then make a decision what happens. And then, if you just watch that, the movement before it settles, then the put in, then enjoy the rugby. Because it was fabulous.
It's been great to defend on, and it tells you certainly Danny Kerr, these guys have really upped England's intensity, have a real impact on the game. They haven't just settled into the rhythm of what went before.
Not yet, they will hope. Kerr switches it back to Ford. Here goes Joseph again. Once more. Clocking on in midfield. Toja. England under-20 captain. Now playing with the big boys.
Lovely to play. Toja gets up. Kerr, really good speed from the base.
And this is George, and it's beautiful. Farrell. It's not been all the way from perfect, but as this match has got...
A lovely scrum, and that's the path England are on. I like what Eddie Jones is saying. He's brought back hooking. It's not, we don't want to see that ball jamming in the front row. I noticed that you guys, we've watched many clips of your games, and none of the clips in the games that we were sent showed a collapse, and none of them showed you weren't hooking. So somehow in this demise where we went into, which I'll get to a little later on, we ended up with no hooking, and now we're starting to get back to it, and some of the things you enjoy in your game week by week. The next,
That's down there.
Good.
just before we start, the next section I want to show you is I watched Sale play the Dragons. Now we've got here something very similar to what you might face. We've got Sale, an English team playing a Welsh team with an Irish coach. So you turn up on a Saturday and you've got a group of people who you've never seen before and you've just got to make the best of it. With Wayne, he would have the chance to have a word with him before the game about exactly what he expects. He expects a hooker to line up on the mark, to the left of the mark, and that immediately makes every single player is in the correct slot. So there's no trouble. When he crouches, when he asks for a crouch, if the back five would get a move on, it would help in joining up. When he asks for a crouch, they crouch, and he doesn't want it too much delay. He'll then wait till they're balanced. He'll call them in to bind, but not pre-engage. So they hold it on the arm, and it goes from there, step by step. With this first scrum, it's Sale with the Dragons. I'd like you can't watch everything at once, so I'd like you to look at the front row foot movement. This is going to come important later. Just after contact. In other words, the ref must wait. And some teams you're going to find come up on crouch. The locks come up on crouch. Others wait to bind. So just watch the bind of the props, which is so much improved, and then the foot movement before the thing settles.
That's down there.
Good.
They're going to like this competition, don't they? They've got a taste for it. Brings the best out of the first. Keith Jones was saying this week. Semi-final last year, with a home quarter-final. That's what they're aiming for tonight. Meant a huge amount to the region. Their Shear is trying to do his best.
The next one, same match. I'd like you to look for the back row positions. I've been asked to look at back row. What do you expect of the back row? I expect the back row to pack legally, the number 8 to be bound in contact with his locks as the scrum is formed. I don't expect them to slingshot. I don't expect the flankers to bind on the hand. I expect them to have a shoulder on the prop to remain in a great scrummaging position. And in this clip here, you'll see, well, in the couple coming up, Beaumont showing a superb number 8 scrummaging position. He can actually add force. So look at the contact, look at the props, remember that foot movement, and then let's see what happens from it. It's bringing the game back to the scrum.
Lewis Roberts, you can hear, is conducted 2017 man in the fridge. The fridge freezer, really. It's got a warm heart, though. Solid as a rock that scrum, and it allows Beaumont to burst off that scrum. And then Stringer. And then Edward.
The next one, are we on 5 now? Yeah. Well, look at this. What can happen from the scrum? 8 break, and then brilliant rugby. And everything I talked about earlier about space, the space on the field, the unused space. Well, I know this takes a bit of brilliance, a bit of genius, but it's lovely to watch.
Dragon. That's still functioning at 100%. Wonderful play. Edwards racing
might not think it has much to do with the scrum. But the efficiency, the competence, the discipline, the togetherness, the speed of the ball to the back, all played their part. And one of the things he's best at, very few referees get, and I know it's slightly different in a lot of the clips we looked at you, your scrums never seem to collapse. Well, the higher the level you go in rugby, the more the front row is scared about being pushed back, because your professional career is suddenly on the line. And if you are one of those tight heads who's, you know, got a nickname of being some sort of Air Force cadet, and that's the end of it. So they tend to pack lower than your guys. I saw much more coming up at your, I'm not talking about all of you, but some of your levels of the game, scrum coming up, which we'll talk about in a minute. But he's great at getting the big guys who tend to scrummage too low. He actually talks about height. He's about the only referee in the world which will see a scrum collapse, give him another chance, and say, I must have this scrum higher. You must scrummage at a height you can maintain. If you can't, it's down to you. So he hands the responsibility firmly back to the player. So what number are we on now?
6, the Dragons.
We've done that.
This is Dragons.
Okay, yeah. Now I'd like you to watch this, because I haven't showed you a pushover and I haven't showed you a penalty try. So 5 tries were scored in this game directly from scrums or indirectly in one way or another. Now this is the opposition. They've been under the cosh all game, but look at that space again, what you can achieve. If you can get the scrum to function, I mean work, so that the ball comes out of it instead of endless penalties. Yes, you might be right with the penalty, but you might have contributed to it. And that, if I could give you a slightly different way of looking at it, because of the work I've done with him, and sometimes he looks at me with a slightly wry look as if he simply doesn't believe me, but we still keep chatting, and sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm not. But look at this beauty. This is the opposition. You've been under the cosh all game.
Ross Harrison.
Look at the setup, positioning.
There's no weakness now, Gary. No, I'm just saying there's no weakness, is there, not for a bring up? These are the guys.
Is it settled?
These are the guys that started. The 2 confident.
Now this shows space more than any of the other clips.
Choice Proctor cover that. Harrison has an opportunity for the Dragons. Snaps one back.
You have a lot of skill and
Didn't they need it?
a lot of skill to do stuff like that, but it did come off the scrums. Right, can we stick up the next thing? Right. I want to talk to you about crouch, bind, set. And a very quick recap. I go back to 1995, where I just joined WASPs. I'd left teaching. I was absolutely amazed and delighted to meet 2 guys. I taught at Dulwich, well, I didn't teach, but I mean, we were there together at Dulwich College in 1975. And then a little bit later, the younger one. It's really fantastic.
I was -4 there for a bit.
Well, there's a guy there, Pete Edgley, who's still refereeing, and he's in his 60s, so I don't know where that puts me.
Really old.
Anyway, in 1995, I was first asked to help with England. And I'd seen them pushed around by Italy and, well, throughout the World Cup. They're pushed around by Argentina, they're pushed around Italy. And you know, their engagement was soft. Their engagement was soft. So the first thing I did was go in and suggest they beef it up. So we got 2 club teams, Rosslyn Park and Richmond, to turn up on a Sunday, because that's when they train. We just lined them up, there was a pack, and got the England pack from one to the other to the other. And every time the scrum was engaged, asked just to smash them back, regardless of the ball getting in, to get the mentality we were going to smash them back. And then we watched the All Blacks. And the All Blacks were playing in South Africa in 1996 against the Springboks. And for the first time ever, they won 4 test matches, and they had a lighter pack. But what they did was, the law book said, the ball should be put in on as soon as the front rows come together. It basically means the ball can be put in on contact. It basically means the moment you engage the scrum, the ball's in. And the All Blacks got a beautiful driving scrum, Zinzan Brook off the back. I think Martin Wood's up there somewhere. I can remember showing him a video of Paul Brown, Sean Fitzpatrick, and Craig Dowd smashing through contact, and Brook going off the back of a rolling scrum. But it's not going to take long before the opposition realised that, and we were all doing it. We wanted to do it better than them. So the heat builds up, it works well while you're the dominant team, but when it comes and everybody's doing it, you get instant contact, the ball collapses on contact, there's too much for the referee to watch, the whole thing gets out of control, everybody says what's happening and where are we going. So the IRB under pressure decides to change the rules. And gradually we've had a series of changes, and they kept missing the point. And the point was this, they introduced, I don't know, one of the ones quite recently was crouch, touch, pause, engage. But then the ball could be put in immediately. So actually nothing had changed. The guys would go through the thing, crouch, touch, pause, bang! Put the ball in quickly, we're back in business. So nothing changed. The only thing that's changed is since they introduced crouch, bind, set. It's not that bit. The bit that has changed, and which I would urge you to take on board, the ball may not be put in until you, the referee, decide it is stable, square, stationary, there's no bucking, there's no movement. It's like you wring the neck of a chicken and it kicks around for a bit. Well, let that scrum settle. But do you know something? It takes a nerve to do it, because there's no question, scrummaging must be one of the most complicated things to referee, to control, to umpire in the whole world. You've got 16 men, 900 kilo a pack in some cases, wanting to wage war on the others, coming into contact, and you, on your own, have got to control them. And for a long time, after what they've been through, this instant scrum, they were scared and slightly nervous, and some of the guys would rush it and want the ball in quickly so the scrum could be over. But if you get the ball in too quickly, you don't get the benefit of the new regulations. So let's go through the system. You gather them together. Scrum on the mark. You make a mark. To make sure, we go through a lot of things, don't we? We go through many, many things. One was head on head, if you remember. And if we say hooker to the left of the mark, immediately everybody's in their slot. If you're not sure they're in their slot, you ask for the loose head to get his shoulder out. And then we're ready to go.
Roachy, just what do you mean by getting the loose head shoulder out?
Well, if you come here, Wayne, and you're the hooker, and I'm the loose head, I can often want to pack in here, so I'm going to get under the tight head's chest.
Yeah.
And you want him to do that.
Yeah.
Square up so that there's a genuine slot for the opposition to come into. And the same with the opposition loose head. When we're happy with that, the way they're formed up, we want them to be balanced. We don't call them into a crouch. You don't want them to delay too long in the crouch, but often one team will come down first and then the second team will come down. You can't make an art form of it because some teams love to delay. I'll tell you why. The team who's crouched first
Take a note one.
Strong engagement. Patience is a virtue.
The other guys take too long, and of course, being down in a fully crouched position is wearing on the quads, and you want to bring them down. So that's the little things you've got to adjust and ask the guys to move quicker. You want them to crouch. Wait till they're balanced. Take your time. Bind. The bind has proved to be a good thing. The binding of the tight head and loose head, as we've seen here, has improved immeasurably. Immeasurably. There was so much on the arm, and now we can look, we've got time to look for genuinely good bind. On bind, we don't want them already connected, although I'm not too fussed personally about pre-engagement. But the law as it stands, and we work what we can to do it as the book asks, wants a gap between the front rows before you set them. But I want to tell you something. They moved their feet. You saw it on that film. You must give them time. We saw some fabulous video of your guys in the London Society Referees where they took patience, they did everything. And just one or two of the guys rushed it so that the feet were still moving. Often when you're a tight head, say, you have one foot slightly forward. You bind, and then you feel confident to get your foot into a perfect scrummaging position. You must allow them that time, and then the thing settles. Sometimes the second rows, there's two ways they come up. There are three ways they come up. Some of them they're almost all on their knees now. Some come up on crouch. As soon as you crouch, they come up. Some teams come up on bind, so they stay down on their knees, bind, then they come up on their feet. Again, as a referee, give them time to get into position. Some of them come up on set. They actually come in from the ground. So sometimes you'll see two teams doing it in different ways later on in a minute or two. And you then engage them. Height's important. You can't look at everything hoping it's going to work. We want the scrum to function. We want it to work. And you've got a nice looking scrum. I hope you saw a couple there from the side when everybody seemed to be playing their role. Now the biggest thing of all comes now. It's not crouch, bind, set. It's not crouch and hold, engage. They're all fine, those things are. It's what happens after you've engaged them. If you will only be patient, hold your nerve, wait, insist that you want the scrum stationary, on the mark, square, and you're not going to accept anything else. You don't have to free kick them the first time. You can get them up and say, I want a controlled engagement on this mark, and I'm waiting until it is stable and stationary and nobody's moving up and down until I have the ball put in. Now if you do that, the players begin to get the message. You don't necessarily have to free kick them the first time. You can talk to about it at least once. But then, as the game progresses, they get used to, if you're consistent, you'll start to get stable scrums. You'll get the ball put in. If it's hooked, hopefully it'll get out the back and you'll get some rugby. I want to talk about Wayne's style. You know I've talked about the two-part scrum, but we haven't had a two-part scrum. We've had a one-part scrum. We had a one-part scrum for 10 years, when smashing in engagement, early put in, and we used to have conversations, not once we dealt with what you faced. And he used to look at me then critically. I used to say, it's got to be a two-part scrum. I know I've been part of making it a one-part scrum, but now for safety, for rugby, for the space, for every other reason, we've got to get back.
Well, I think it got to the point once, wasn't it? And I won't mention the teams because we're being recorded, but I think they hit the scrum half had to take 2 steps to the left because they'd already gone 3 metres through the mark and then put the ball in. And I think at that point we said that we need to do something about this now. And that was me and you having a discussion, but I think now this has allowed us to do that.
Yeah. And if I'd say his style, I'd say he's calm. I'd say he's clear in his mind. He checks what he's doing, so he prepares. He holds his nerve. There's a beautiful scrum in about 3. I'll show you 2. But the scrum goes in relatively early. Then there's a scrum where they're bucking around. It's in the same game, but he holds his nerve and he waits till it settles. When we get out of it, beautiful scrum ball. Because if he rushes at that point, I believe the players then think you're going to rush it. They think you're going to rush it, they think you're going to hit through, and you can start to create people going early, people going free kicked and all the rest of it. So let's watch Wayne's start.
So, it was 2 years ago.
Here he is, 2 teams from Racing Metro in Glasgow and an English referee.
Before rather losing their heads in the quarter-final. In the last few moments when they conceded that try, that penalty went under no real threat at all against Saracens. Marcelo Bosch knocking that penalty over for almost halfway.
Now that scrum was set easily and we allowed the ball in. Let's watch the next one.
So, in other words, 2 years ago, used to pick up so much ball in the line out, and now, of course, when we've got Luke Charteris, all 2 metres and a few centimetres on him. And of course you do rely on the hook of the throwing strain. Dmitry Sharshevsky tonight for Racing. Rakon is the replacement hooker. Nakarawa with the pick-up, playing in a slightly unfamiliar position today. He stepped back from the second row to play at number 8. There's Price.
Just on that one, Roach, you're very much aware that the team putting in are under a massive amount of pressure. I think we all saw that, and as the ball comes away, the 8's picking it up going backwards. And there's probably an offence in there for an angle or for a loose head releasing his bind or even the back row. The one thing I've definitely taken away from our conversations, that idea is, not just holding your nerve on the engagement, that patience, but just waiting, because that team's under pressure and they've already got poor ball, so you don't need to go and look for a decision there, because I'm sure we could look at that again and we could say, oh, not one about the loose head's angle and the tight head's angle. If you just hold back, you don't need to give a decision there. You don't need to blow your whistle, and we've talked about that so many times as a group about not blowing your whistle if you don't have to. Now, who really cares if there is a bit of an angle or a bit of a breaking of the binding? Because we've got good scrum ball, we've got contested scrum ball. I think that's really important. We'll look at some clips later on from your clips about don't go looking for things that clearly aren't there.
Now what's this beauty? I like this one. Because it tests.
Technical play there from the fullback. Got it on the second bite. 5. Set. Not much for the home crowd to shout about in the opening half an hour of this game.
Nakarawa tops it up with Price. Russell loses it and rather carelessly hacks it.
Did you see the loose head on the far side moving up and down all the rest? And if you allow him to put him there, you don't know what's going to happen next, and that creates confusion amongst the players. But by holding his nerve, it meant as the game went on, progressed, and got lovely scrum ball.
Look, and you know what it's like out there. You want to get the ball in as quickly as possible because they're together. Let's get the ball in because more quickly it'll come out, and then I don't have to referee a scrum. But as soon as you see that kind of movement, that's when you've just got to hold back. You're going to say, right, no, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait. Because the more chance you've got of that ball coming out, Now if you have to reset it and say, right, hold on loose, get your knee off the floor there, tight end, just don't put the heat on too early. But when you've got that movement, and it's, as Roche said, it's not just that movement, it's that movement as well. And that's what we see when we look at the clips that we've seen from our society. It's the up and down movement. Just be patient. Take the sting out of it. Take the heat out of it. Call it what you want. Just tell them. Don't care which way you're moving, I'm going to wait. And I think that's a really nice example of where you're thinking, shit, I want the ball in here, I want the ball in here, I want the ball in. And if you just hold off, I think that's a really nice example of what you can get out of a scrum.
Well, you just, at that scrum, so at the next scrum, you got a word with those guys. That's a lot to think about.
Look, maybe. I might have even said, well done. I might have even said to him, look, great recovery. Because Lou said as a friend, you don't always have to look for the negative. You can go over and say, look, Nate, great recovery. You got off your knee there, but you did really well. You know, that's one thing that we did over the last 6 months is we went into teams before the matches in September and October and said, look, I've watched that game, really impressed by the way that you've got that nice long line. Really happy with the way that you're scrumming. Geez, you took them apart last week, and we're trying to almost be a bit more positive, rather than saying you're a cheat and you don't jump on the floor. But a really nice clip.
Now, I was sitting down one Saturday for this, just to watch, you know how many games are on TV? BT Sport, Sky. I had 8 games on that weekend, and I found that Dragons game, and I liked that Dragons game, because so much came from the scrum. Then I watched Toulouse too long, play Wasps, and they had the best referee in the world. I suppose he's a great ref, don't get me wrong, top 2 or 3. But I'm not so keen on his scrum. Do you know why? Because everything I've talked about today, he rushes. He doesn't always rush, he's getting there, but he rushes. So as the game goes on, you get more and more free kicks, because, can I tell you, if you're a front row forward, and the referee allows the ball to be put in early on the opposition side, what are you going to do next scrum? You're going to go early. And then suddenly, unexpectedly, he free kicks you. So there's a logic in what you're doing, but he's not actually playing his part. And that's why I say, I get the things about this player's done that wrong, this player's done that wrong. But sometimes it's the management of the scrum by the referee which could have avoided that situation altogether. Now this game too long lost. Ended up, I mean they're both good scrummings, you know that. Ended up a complete shambles. Allowing scrums on the ankle, they were pushing early. Well, I don't want to show all those. I'll just show 2 clips so that you can see there's still body movement when he allows a put in. You'll see also he's standing there by the halfback with his hand ready to touch in to signal the put in almost before he's called them into contact. Now I don't think that's good practice, because that's assuming you're going to get a totally sweet connection. But we haven't been too heavy on this.
A little closer than that, so the weight will
Look,
be.
his hand. They're all moving. See it?
Some early issues for that Wasps back. And Toronto's stolen it.
Okay.
I think as well, what Phil has to show that's the first scrum of the game as well. And I hate that idea of going out and setting your stall. I hate that phrase more than anything. Go out and set your stall as a player, show them who's boss, show who's going to roll away. But, as Roche said, if you say to a player, I'm going to hold it until it's stationary, and then you allow that movement, you know what's going to happen at the next scrum, you know what's coming. So I think that first scrum is when you've really got to hold your nerve. You've really got to say, no, it's going to be balanced, because you know, that's 4 minutes into the game and they're not knackered by that point. If your first scrum's 80 minutes in or 70 minutes into the game, they'll be fine. But 3 minutes in, they've still got that adrenaline running through them. So that's when you just got to really, really hold your nerve.
Yeah, well, I want to just add to that. I've got it written down here, so let's dig it out. You know when I talked about wanting no movement, The law book said stationary. Stationary is like this. Square. If you allow a scrum to set on an angle, one side has a definite advantage. The side not putting in have already got a tight head on the back foot. This side have already turned the back row out of the way this way. So you've already loaded the dice. If you don't get a square scrum, then no vertical movement. You don't want this happening before you allow put in. Lateral movement. What's the other one? Horizontal movement. You don't want any of them. You want them, they may be that as they get their feet, but that is all you're going to allow. And you get them up and you say, I want a controlled engagement. It's in your power to say that. A controlled engagement, I want the scrum on the mark and square. And I've seen some of your refereeing. It's decisive, it's clear. If you add that to your little book of comments, it'll work. Providing you're confident in what you say and don't speak to the players in gobbledygook so they don't quite understand what you're saying or anything too general. Be quite specific about what you're not happy with, but you don't actually have to penalise. You can get them up straight away after that first scrum and said, we've spoken in the changing room, or we're speaking now if you're not listening, and it's square, it's stationary, it's controlled, and it's on the mark. Right, let's start again with a fresh sheet and keep the height up, bind up. They'll listen.
Has 6.
So this is later in the game, and they do get the ball away. This lot know the putting's going to be instant. So they're ready to go on contact. He's already ready to touch the half-back. He's touching him, it's under the post.
Around here, Waters have got to get this away quickly. They've been concerting this backwards.
No, they watched it brilliantly, and Toulon were already on the move. But it doesn't make for a good game, because that actually deteriorated throughout the match. Any questions?
I think we move on to the tight end loose end battle now, unless. And one of the things when Bob asked us to speak, one of the things he asked us to look at is that battle, which we see every week, and some clues and some triggers and some pictures about that loose end versus tight end, who's at fault. But I thought what we would start to do, and something that Phil constantly talks to me about, is what their roles are. Because unless you understand what they're trying to do, it's quite hard to understand when they get it right and when they get it wrong. So Roach is just going to kind of explain what a tight head does and what a loose head does. And sorry if that's really simplistic, but he tells me this every single time we get together, and it's just having that reminder of their roles.
Sorry, Wayne. I'm sorry, I can't get away with that. As a coach, great that we're getting back to doing things. We talk very eloquently about the law's sake, this, that, and the other. Why do we still allow feeding into the second row?
Can we touch that at the end? We'll just carry on, because what we're seeing now, you're seeing with England, are teams hooking the ball. And I think that's fantastic to see. And I think the clips that we've seen, we've had some fantastic hooks of the ball. So I think that's positive. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll tell you something ironically as well. It is absolute, a hooker strikes the ball there, right? If, with the ball being put in crooked, the less people have struck for the ball, the more crooked the ball's gone in. Agreed? Now, once hooking starts to come back, it's useless having the ball rolled behind your feet. You can't strike it. And so suddenly, the ball is coming into the tunnel. The lawmakers have made it that only a tiny portion of the ball has got to go over the middle line. Okay? But I think you will see in the Premiership, I'm hoping, that as hookers start to strike the ball more, to get it swept straight back to number 8, you need contact with the instep and the heel. And the ball needs to be put into the tunnel. It may not get it dead straight, but I think it'll get it a hell of a lot better than it's been. Right, and where was I?
Tight heads, loose heads.
Tight heads, loose heads. You know it, you don't have to tell me. The tight head appears to be in a lovely position. He's got both shoulders in the scrum. He's nice and compact, feeling comfortable, and life is rosy. The problem is... Sorry? Am I talking too loud? Am I talking too loud?
We heard it, mate.
The tight head appears to be in a lovely position. He's got both shoulders in the scrum. He's nicely bound. He's got his support from his flanker and his lock. And he's ready to go. The only trouble is the imbalance of the way we set up, as you only too well know, with the loose head with only one shoulder, but he's got the hooker alongside it. So you've got the loose head on me here, you've got the hooker on me here, you've got the lock looking right into my eyes, you've got the flanker on this side on the prop, you can even move the number 8 across into that slot. You can effectively have 5 players firing directly at the tight head. There's an imbalance of weight. We found out by measuring it on the machine. It's about 60% of the force goes through the loose head side collectively compared to the tight head side. If their hooker is striking the ball on their own put-in, this puts even more pressure directly on one man and his mate. And so, how's he going to overcome this? His aim, and the aim of great tight heads, is to bear down on the loose head, to get low, to be compact, to be in a position where he cannot easily be shoved. The loose head, meanwhile, comes in from the other side. They're thinking the hooker and the loose head together on either shoulder. If they can just prise me up from my position, I'm a hell of a lot easier to be pushed back, particularly on our put-in. But also now it's become a way of attacking and winning penalties. We drive through the tight head on their ball, get him going back, move a couple of metres and expect a penalty. So the weight imbalance means the tight head has to come into low and compact and force down on the loose head's neck to try and weaken it. And the tight head tries to get into a position which the loose head on the opposition side finds very uncomfortable and can't shift. So there's one lifting, the loose head, and one lowering. The weakest point on a loose head's body is his neck. If you can layer the chest down on top of him and start to break him, suddenly the tight head is in control. If the loose head can lift him just above his strongest scrummaging position, suddenly you'll get the go forward. Clearly what we don't want is the direct lift from the loose head or the direct taking to ground by the tight head. And that is a very difficult judgment sometimes. One of the biggest the guys in the Premiership faced. But as I say, I looked at a lot of the games from the London Society and I never saw a collapse. So I didn't see, I thought people were operating slightly higher. Let's look at Saxon Lee. Got good prop, compact. Against Waller. Now, a wonderful young English prop. Northampton, on the far side, they got the young Hill we just saw in the first clip. Now, Lee is a nice scrummager. He's only 5'10". He's a new compact build. He reminds me of Slimani of France, who's doing so incredibly well. But let's have a look. You'll begin to see this battle. But he mustn't use his arms. He must use his chest, the tight end.
304. Two-way trade at doesn't even exist now. Corners. No, stay no. No.
They're both bound legally, and we had a really good contest.
And you can see Waller, can't you? You can see Waller there trying to get him up, and Sampson trying to keep him down, but not using his arm. Not using his arm. His arm hardly moves. It's all very strong through the core. Really nice picture for me of what, you know, going into a game when you're refereeing those two, that's what I'd look for. You know, trying to get him up, but forcing him down legally.
Yeah, I thought they were both legal.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we've hardly seen an illegal bind from a tight head. It's been extraordinary, the change.
When you get conditions like this, games need to evolve back to the foundations.
Both the tight heads are good here. We've got this guy Hill on one side,
Slipping and sliding nothing.
Lee on the other. And just nobody gets an advantage, but the ball still comes away. That is what is so good about having the ball hooked. Next one. Now look at Sampson. He's trying to get down. And he's on his knees. So he's got to take the consequence of that.
And why would he end up on his knee, Phil?
He's trying to force his chest down. He's a short man. He scrummages even when he's scrummaging. When he's scrummaging low, the perfect scrummaging position as a tight head is pretty close to the ground. But the law book says you can't do that. That negates the whole thing. So he's forcing down with his chest and he's dropping his knees. He's got a narrow avenue of what's okay and what isn't.
And a line that you might say to him if that's happening?
Scrummage at a height you can maintain. Come up, scrummage it, you can't maintain that height, hence the penalty. But you've got to operate where you can maintain the height. And of course the great tight heads in the world have always been able to do that.
And we'll look at it again, but there's no clear movement from the loose head there. There's not a loose head chucking him off, hinging, call it what you want, which we'll see in a bit. It's that Sampson getting at a height he can't maintain. So get his feet underneath him a little bit more. So remember, he's trying to get it as low as he can, but it's got to be manageable. Just look at it again.
Sometimes you see Waller's head right down.
Might not sleep if they get it through it all.
Already gone, isn't it? It's not a clear
Penalty on Scrum.
And you can be sure the closer he gets to his own try line, the more he's going to be on the margin. Now, hold on a second. Now, just let me get up to scratch. What number are we on now?
That's a good question. We're moving on to questions.
Racing.
We're just going to look at some tight heads, how they might negate that loose head is dominant, what kind of things might be going through their mind.
If you come here, wait just a second. So you come over here. If I'm a tight head, if you could just lean in. If I'm a tight head, I want to put my chest on him there. The moment he weakens on his neck, it's not so easy to drive up onto my hand. Drive up with his head. It's harder work. I want to drop my chest on him, so it's not easy for him. He wants to prise me up and then push me back. Very good.
Have you recovered?
Might be quiet for a while. We're just going to have a look at...
Now look at this, see what you see? You see leverage?
Yeah.
Tight head leverage? The difficulty comes for you if you're not on that side and you haven't got somebody helping you. He's gone on his knee and he's levering on the right side, so it's pretty clear the other guy appears to be doing all he can to hold the scrum up. But it'd be a help. Do you know when it's easier to see? If you've taken your time, if you've made it a two-part process, if you've engaged the scrum, and when you get one thing happening like that, it stands out much more clearly than if everything happens at the same moment in time.
Go back to that example of Lee versus Waller, when there was no movement from the arm, it was all chest. And then you look at this one again, there's movement of the arm. So a real good indicator. He's under pressure. He's going to use everything to stay low. But you don't have to penalise that. I think that's really nice refereeing by Matt there. Just to say, look, yeah, you may have got a little bit of advantage, but we've got the ball away and we can... That's maybe when you have that chat afterwards, when you say, let's just make sure that you keep that bind strong rather than any twisting, any downward pressure. So nice to play away. Good example of what we spoke about at the start. But how a tight head might keep that scrum lower.
Okay, this one, interesting one. What do you think of this? I mean, there's so many things you could do here. Can you show it again? I'll give you my opinion and then please disagree. I think this is the tight head who feels under pressure and he's levering down and the loose head comes down as a consequence. So I think the tight head was lucky. In fact, play on, we get a try, right? It goes to a try. And I think, that's that difficult choice, which side of the scrum you're going to go on. And if you fear or your mate on the touch, do you have guys on the touchline who feed in? Well, get over that tight head side. If the loose head side is working well, get over there. Because it's remarkable. I think we've got a scrum now. You see the next one, or one after that, and the ref moves over there. Suddenly we have a decent bind. Refs there, see the bind? High.
Do you see the difference in the height as well? And so this is a next scrum, so I would have no doubt that Matt has gone that side of scrum and said, on the last one, you're too low, get at the height that you can maintain. And that tight head now is in a world of trouble because of his height is too high. And you know we can see what's happening, we'll just watch it again. But a good height, he's got him with a good height, so he's not going to end up on the floor. He might end up going backwards, but he's not going to end up on the floor. So, and it's literally 6-9 inches higher.
Wayne?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've given us two examples there. Rather unlucky day. You've given us two examples of Andy Sampson Lee going down on his knee, and in one of those examples you said you don't have to penalise him, and it looked to me as though the rationale for that was that the ball had already been hooked and was behind him at that point and was on its way out, and that's why you said you don't have to penalise him, it's not necessary, we've got a good scrum, we've got the ball away. On not this example here, but just immediately before this one, the tight head went down again, and I think he was in the red zone, they were in the attacking red zone, and it looked as though, although the ball was behind him at that point, he'd actually gone down to protect the ball rather than, and I think that's quite a difficult call for referees to make. I'm not quite sure if you think.
No, I think as Phil said, the idea that that red tight head on the last scrum, we'll go back to it just to show it again. On the last scrum, goes down under pressure, wanting to secure his own ball. Not so bad on that one, sorry, this one is the one where Matt's standing there. So he's under pressure, he chucks it on the floor, and then there's quite a delay until the ball comes out. So he's gone, 2, 3, 4. I don't think you've got much option but to penalise it. But when it's on the floor and then it goes away, I think if you haven't got time to blow your whistle, then it's probably okay to play away. But as we said, the scrums that we see in London, scrums aren't going on the floor. But this is what happens if you go out in society on exchange and you see something, you think, shit, the last 3 scrums have gone on the floor. Let's just go back to what Roach has said. Right, tight end, what's he trying to do? He's trying to get it lower, and it's gone on the floor as the pressures come on at that tight end side. Why might that happen? Well, we've just seen that example there of the tight end not wanting to go back. He's being told, get the right shoulder up probably, but he definitely doesn't want to go backwards. So if he goes on the floor and it comes out immediately, we can have that chat. If it goes on the floor and it gets clogged in there, or in this example it's 3-4 seconds, then we can look to give it a penalty. Some really good examples later on from our referees where we're looking to give penalties rather than looking to get the ball away. And that's what I'd ask you to consider. Can we get the ball away? This example, probably not.
Well, I want to add something. Look, we're looking at snapshots here tonight, aren't we? We're taking something completely out of context, looking at it. I don't know what's gone on before. You would have picked up in your mind as a ref which prop is under pressure. And if that prop had been under pressure continuously, and you knew it, and this was a vital scrum, they've actually scored a try off one of them, which shouldn't have been awarded because he'd gone down on his knees. So we're talking about setting out good standards at the beginning of the game, trying to stick to them. You begin to learn about the match-up between the teams, who looks to be the more dominant or not. You gradually go on, and that helps your decision-making, because you're not making it as one isolated scrum. You're making a decision according to how you built up a view of what's going on in front of you. And then, of course, when the substitutes come on, you've got to make a whole different assessment. The weirdest thing happened with France last week. They put on their 140-kilo Antonio at the start of the game, but he tends to go backwards. However much the commentator says 140 kilos and blah, blah, blah. Then they brought Slimani on, who's 108 kilos, but compact, strong, efficient, and the scrum completely changed around. So you guys have got your work cut out, but never, never forget about the picture you are building up of the standard and the performance of the individuals in front of you. I think on the margins they'll help you make consistent and good decisions.
Roach, just an aside, you say about Antonio going backwards and Slimani staying straight, square, fighting. Who coached Slimani?
Oh, lots of people.
Including Phil Keith-Roach. We're just going to look at one. So we've seen the tight head's height, getting it right, getting it wrong.
And I'd like you to stay, as we said, feet slightly wider. That's all right. And just crouch. Now, but the tight head is going to try and bear down on his chest. What we need for the loose head is a very strong left side. So he binds up, put your bind up to there, and he keeps this side strong so that he cannot be levered. Now if you go soft a minute, if the tight head can lever in, you immediately lose all your strength. The key component for a loose head is to keep the left side up. Keep it up now. Bring this up. Right, strong. Now we can't shift it. So the tight head there and he cannot move it. Now I know sometimes you've got a coach guy, but you see a loose head who's folding too easily. He's just too soft on the left-hand side and the scrum starts to go down. Now I would have thought it was a relatively easy thing in the gym or whatever else to explain to a loose head exactly what his job is. To keep flat, to keep square, to keep his bind up, to keep his strength through like that. Now hollow your back a bit. That's better. Now we've got a good looking loose head.
Tell you what, I wish you'd explained this loose head quicker.
Now watch this bloke. He's a lovely man, but I don't think you can blame the tight head here who just See the loose head in the left side going? I think that's a coaching thing. This man's a strong man. He spends his life in the gym lifting up weights we can never dream of. I mean, surely he can be taught to keep his left side up because the tight head's got his arm up on the bind. And it's that when you can get a bit of help from the linesman or your mate on the side saying, hey, that loose head is just caving in. Now, it does happen a bit more, but it didn't seem to happen in any of your games.
You just see again, go back to that process. Tight head's at a height where his knees are off the floor. He's not moved that right arm at all. He's in a strong, quite long position. So then, it's who loses that battle, who loses that contest. And in that one, quite a clear one for Phil, that it's a loose head who gives up. Now, if you're on that side, that might be a pretty straightforward penalty to give. You know, a line that Roach has just used the idea that strong left side, keep your bind high, fight to stay flat. Anything that, you know, don't have to be technical. Don't have to try and be a scrummage expert. Just tell them what you want. I need you keep that bind high. I need you to stay flat. I need you not to go on the floor.
Yes, and I think this is something that things you relay to the players, because I saw an awful lot when you do this part of the presentation. But I saw a lot of scrums coming up. You may need to ask people to keep down in the scrum, to keep down, to keep flat, to scrum flat, to bind, to be stationary. It's simple command, but make sure every one of them is for a reason and is relevant to the bloke you're talking to. Lou said he has a responsibility to fight to stay up and to keep his left side strong. The tight head has a responsibility. He can scrum as low as he likes, but he must maintain his feet and he mustn't collapse. And if he can't, then he's scrummaging at a height he's unable to maintain. I wrote down here at the end, which I may or may not use, a load of terms and words, things you could use. Like stationary, square, stable, balanced, in your slot, hookers left of the mark. It's simply not good enough. We start again and you give them a talk through what you want. Control the engagement. I want it on the mark. Bind up. No movement up, bucking I call it. Simple things like that may add to your repertoire what to do when you're in a bit of a mess and things aren't working out quite as you'd like. Slow down.
And Phil says they're simple messages, but they're really effective. They're messages that you'll hear, and I'm refereeing each week. And they're simple English terms. It's not trying to be too clever. It's stationary, it's control, it's hit up, it's 6 inches higher. It's not, I need you not to bind on there because if you do, you'll be retreating. It's just simple phrases. We don't need to show people how clever we are at Scrum. We just need to tell them what we expect of them. And I think those phrases, if you've written them down, would be great to go into your match this weekend if anything's going wrong. I know I'll be using them on Sunday and I'll be using them next Friday. We're going to have a look at some of your clips now. We got sent maybe 50 scrums. Now, some might be in the room. Please don't be offended if we show some clips where we're going to discuss. Please
don't be ecstatic that you're there if we show you doing them well. This is just to paint some pictures about games that we see week in, week out when we're going around the London circuit. And it's just to bring home some of the messages that Phil's already asked us to look at. So patience is a virtue. If there's one thing that we can do this weekend as a group, it's to remember that. And it's to take our time and to give the players the opportunity to have the best scrum possible. So we wait when we ask them to crouch to get balance. We ask them to bind and we wait for them to adjust their feet in the second rows to come up. We then ask them to set and we wait to get that movement up, down, left, right, in and out. And then we get the ball in. And you might say, well, it's taken an extra 3 or 4 seconds. Well, great, but that's better than a reset, which takes an extra minute. So we're just going to have a look at some really good examples.
Set! 1, 2, 3. Set, please.
What's happened again? Really good patience by this referee. We've missed the clip of him asking him to crouch just because how it's... But how patience? It's still moving. It's still moving.
Steady. Use 9.
Someone's clipped this differently to how I sent them. That's all right. But great patience, isn't it? Great patience. And how would we be there? You can imagine standing there, can't you? And it being an extra second, you'll think, I need to get this ball in, I need to get this ball in. But just wait, and you get a better platform. Just see if this one works, yeah? No, you'll have to trust me. When you get this through, you will see that it's a really nice bit of patient refereeing.
Worth it.
Crouch! Yeah, hold. Climb! Set! Crouch! Yeah, hold. Climb! Set!
You see the difference between the two? And look, we get the ball in and we get a contested scrum, but we don't have that stability. And as the players are coming down, he's asking to bind, and as he's binding, he's saying yes, and it's straight away the indicator. So we can just take our time on those. And the difference in the scrum ball, you know, you look at those ones that Phil showed earlier. If you can take one thing away from tonight, it's that patience to take time to build the scrums. Anyone got any questions on that patience issue? Phil, anything to add to that, or they're just nice examples?
Well, I want you to show the next scrum.
Alright, give me that. I've got it. Let's go. Crouch! I said, listen. Bind. Set. Steady. Early.
Stop it there. Now, my point is one thing leads to another. And whereas we say, yeah, that player's at fault, that player's at fault, in my opinion, I like the decisive way that guy has a very good presence on the field. But all he has to do is slow down, and he'd never had them hitting through the mark. The only reason they hit through the mark was the previous scrum. It was crouch, bind, set, ball in. We were back to where we were 3 years ago. How long have we been coping with our new thing? 2 years. I'm very, very pleased I'm here tonight when I got so many encouraging feelings about the scrum. But that is taking it back to 1 moment scrum. If you add together and you say crouch, bind, set, ball in, we're back to where we were. And that led us nowhere. That led us to a complete shambles, and it was very difficult for us to deal with anything because the law book said the ball will come in when the shoulder, as soon as the front rows come together. Now I think that bloke, who was clearly a good ref, will be a million times better if he just takes his time and enjoys setting the scrum. Set it, look at it. It's a work of art.
What's really interesting, if you think about it, Green get the early shove on the first scrum, don't they? So Black will know that, and at the next scrum they think, well, they've just done it, so we'll do it. And you can imagine yourself being there, can't you? Right, we're not going to let them come at us early, so we're going to go at them early. And then, as Phil said, that's a consequence. And then we're going to just have a look at a couple of clips of, is there a need to make this decision? So we know that sometimes teams are under pressure and it causes a turnover, or the ball doesn't come out, it gets jammed in there, and we have to make a decision. Really nice example, eh? Someone really confident in his scrum referee, just taking a second to referee that. We'll have a look at this one properly. That referee's got no option but to blow his whistle there, because red go forward, 3 angles, 3 stand up, white stand up, white come in an angle, and white get the ball. So we can't reward that. There's no opportunity of getting the ball away. Really nice patience. That referee's got no option but to blow his whistle there. Really good patience, giving it every opportunity of that scrum working, but red don't get the ball out. They're going backwards, it gets clogged in there, maybe they haven't hooked it, and it gets into the opposition's tunnel, and everyone breaks away. So referee has no option but to penalise him. Just want you to have a look at 2.
Crouch! Bind! Set! Hold the push! Penalty advantage! Back foot, back foot, back foot!
2 things. Bit rushed, we agree? Bit rushed, yeah. Set and in comes the ball. But do we need to penalise that? Can we just wait and see what happens? Do you see any clear offending there? Let's watch it again. Or can we just say, let's play on? Let's keep our whistle in the pocket.
Bind! Set! Hold the push! Penalty advantage! Back foot, back foot, back foot!
So if you ask Green what they wanted from Black's ball there, they would probably say disrupt it. If you gave them the opportunity of having their ball, they would probably take it with bells. So let's not give it unless we really have to. So we can just take a second. Another example here.
Bind! Set! Steady!
One thing on this, as Roachy said, we've not seen the build-up to this clip. So we don't know if this has happened throughout. Is this a decision you have to make? Or say when the ball's out?
Set! Steady!
And it's far side. It's quite a brave decision to give from the far side. So,
I don't see any angle there.
exactly, as Roachy said, it couldn't have been that much of an angle because they went quite a bit forward as well. So if you go straight across, maybe not. And then just one more. So we look at at that Racing one that we looked at. Can we just, and again, we haven't seen all the scrums. Can we just wait to see if that loose end recovers? Clearly puts his arm on the floor. Remember, he's been bared down on. You know, that tight end trying to get him low. Can we just wait? Hold on, hold on. Yeah, he's got his bite up. Yeah, now let's get the ball in. Just hold back if you can. Just 3 examples of where I think we don't need to blow our whistle. You know, we can get them up. We can say, like, next time, can we just get that vine strong? Haven't seen the lead up to this, but just some examples that we saw going through these clips of when we think you're blowing the whistle a little bit before you need to. Because remember, every time you blow a whistle, game stops, people look at you, people ask, has he got it right, has he got it wrong? Whereas, just let the game go, perhaps people don't look at you, people get more time, props don't cheat as much.
Wayne? Wayne, just in relation to that last one.
1 second, as long as it's not feed question, you can...
No, we don't care about the feed. In relation to that last one, we referee at a level from 6 to 10 and so forth. He's clearly lost his bind. Do we, if he does not recover from that situation, do we then reset or just penalise? Because at the end of the day, a lot of the time we're thinking, well, he might just not have the skill to actually be able to reset. In that situation, reset and go. You don't have to penalise somebody for being...
I think he does get his bind. I think he tries to re-gets it on this one. So, watch. He gets it. So that's why we're saying, look, let's just wait to see what. If he keeps his hand on the floor, we can't carry on. Okay? We might need to penalise it if you've seen that 3 or 4 times and you've given him his warning. It might be the tight end is binding on his arm to stop him binding. So we have to make sure we've got the right decision. But in that situation, definitely agree you can't carry on if he's not bound. You may reset it. If it's continual, I think you then have to penalise it. But make sure you penalise the right offence. If you imagine Roach is the loose end, you can be the loose end once. and he's going to try and bind on my shirt. You go like that. And I'm on here. He's not going to be able to get the bind. But if the tight end's nice and long, he can bind where he wants. But if I'm on his... Oh, let's choose it. I hope they won't extend it.
To answer your question, I would say, depends what's gone on early in the game. I would say give the guy the benefit in the first couple of scrums. I would say be quite clear what you expect of him, to get his arm up and to keep it up. And then later on in the game, if he's letting you down, you may have to penalise him. So I think a little bit of, I mean, you all have empathy and but you don't want to go too far and have the bogies taking the piss.
No, of course. And because obviously we've actually, in our society, we've had this conversation about scrums before. We try to be patient, and to the point where I've had some scrum actually tell me, you're waiting too long, we can't hold it there. I've never played in the front row. What do we tell them? Do we tell them to go back to the gym, or do we tell them to go? Is there such thing as too much patience?
No. Well, that's a really interesting question as well, because when they brought in this new law, it's only 2 years ago. I keep going back to it. But Wayne would come to me and say he's been told by other guys on the international panel that there is a unique point just after contact under the new system, when apparently it is perfect to put the ball in. And these are international referees who I think he's gone past because they haven't got to the bases of what's necessary in the scrum. And they will say that to you. But if you have the confidence and try it out in a couple of games when you don't feel under particular pressure, right, and say we're controlling this engagement, it's not actually making it harder for you. We're bringing you into a controlled contact, we're checking you're all properly bound, and then we're having the ball in. You'll be doing them a favour. But that is, unfortunately, the bit of coaching that you have to do more of, probably, than these guys do. But you know, these guys have to coach you.
You know, a line I use is, look, I'll be as quickly as you allow me to be. If you bind and then get stable, I'll then move on. But I'm not going to move it on until you are stable. If you come together when I say set and it's stable, I'll get the ball in as quickly. But if the loose head loses his bind and then takes a second to get it back up, and then it takes a second to get stable, then it's going to take longer. So totally down to you how quickly I can do. So totally down to that. But really, really good point.
Encourage people. And the best two words, I liked it because I believe that the two most important words in coaching and other things are well done. And it's often not said enough. It wasn't said enough in professional rugby early on. There were bullies around. You had to bully people. If you encourage players to keep the arm up, chop to the next line out, it's okay, it's getting better. Things like that, they may help your game as well. But the clearer you are of that picture, remember that picture at the start we had? The flankers bound and 8 bounds, the front row coming in. Have that in your mind. And then take that into the game and you can encourage them to stick to it. Because if they don't, you've got to penalise them or got to free kick them.
Two last clips before we finish, just about smart decision making. So a little bit about do you need to throw your whistle. Now I'm not saying that these decisions are wrong in law, but are there other ways of dealing with it? So referee gets a nice bit of patience.
2 feet behind, 2 feet behind.
Nice picture between that tight head and loose head back.
2 feet back. Thank you. Okay, stay bound, 19, stay bound, stay bound. Free kick, you're bringing it back in. The ball was out. The ball was out of the scrum.
Number 19 to number 8 takes the ball back into the scrum. Clearly right, he clearly is unbound. But is there a way of dealing with that better? The idea of Phil says, no, I don't know if this happened during the rest of the game, but of just saying, hold on, let's stop again. Fellas, you've got to go forward. Your tight head's doing really well there. He's fighting to stay down. But you've just made me reset this scrum because you're not staying bound. So can we stay bound, please? Because I will guarantee you, it's interesting to see the two professional players in the room looking, shaking their head, because if I gave that decision on the weekend, that would be it. No one would speak to me for the rest of the game. And then one more. Again. Still be in the scrum, but again, is there a smarter decision to give in that situation, or are we looking to make decisions, and is that because we don't want to have another scrum? Take your time setting the scrum up, enjoy refereeing the scrum, sit back, really hold that urge to get the ball in, and then you'll enjoy scrummage refereeing. And then when you have decisions like those last two, you'll think, well, what's wrong with another reset? I can reset that scrum. I don't need to make a decision to get me out of there, because I wonder whether that's a I'm going to get out of these scrums decisions. So some thoughts.
There's one just last thing for me. There's a scrum which we didn't show you tonight, which was Claremont v Glasgow in the last stretch. Sorry, Claremont v Ospreys. This is a scrum on halfway. He was refereeing. The ball was put in. Claremont got the drive on. Everything was nice height. Claremont got the go forward. They went forward and forward and forward. But none of the Ospreys transgressed. None of them. The front row didn't stand up. The flankers didn't unbind. The game went pushed and pushed and pushed. It is no sin to be pushed back. So you don't, just because one team is moved forward half a yard, you don't give a penalty. You must have a reason to give a penalty. Otherwise, thankfully with this one, it went for about 5 yards, it turned slightly, and the ball was played away. There was no need for penalty, and yet the scrum had moved 10 metres. So I would also sort of add, just to push somebody a bit is not worth a penalty unless something happens to warrant it. Because it's become a trick on your own ball to drive up the loose side, tight head follow you through, go half a yard, if the thing breaks up or comes up, stand up, penalty. It's simply not enough. And of course, it means we return to penalties only, scrumming only. We return to only the Premiership referees having no strike moves off scrum. 0. Well, now they're coming back. You saw a few of them tonight. And the England coach is setting the trend. So I hope that's going to happen throughout the game. And we're going to feel the scrum. It really is part of it again. Because I did feel it was going to be lost. The Aussies wanted it out. They wanted us just to have non-contested scrums. And we've been round the houses to get the right law. I never thought the bind was necessary. Frankly, if we'd still had crouch and hold engage, but waited after the engage for the referee to decide when the ball goes in, we wouldn't have had to go around the garden for the last 10 years. So let's hope it continues, and it feels very encouraging.
I'm going to say a few words. But for me, Phil Keith-Roach, as I said, is for me the best scrummage coach that England, if not the world, has ever had. And so to get him here, giving up his time, and as you can see, he's not just turned up tonight and just told us what he's thinking. He's actually done some preparation. I'm really glad he has done that. But this is a huge amount of time, and I hope that we'll just show appreciation